They called at 6:12 a.m., the kind of call that splits your life into a before and after. "Miss Monroe," the man's voice said, calm but clipped. "Your name was on a list we found in a suspect's vehicle. You need to come with us, now." I didn't ask which list. Something in my bones already knew. By 7 a.m., I was in the back of an unmarked SUV, watching the world blur through tinted glass. Two agents sat up front, one tapping on a tablet, the other scanning traffic like a man ready for war. I wanted to speak. I wanted to scream. But all I could hear was the sound of my daughter's laughter from yesterday, echoing in my head like a ghost. They took me to a safe house, bland walls, cheap furniture, the kind of place where you're not meant to feel at home. The woman who greeted me didn't smile. "Vance Boelter," she said, handing me a mug of instant coffee. "Do you know him?" The name felt like a slap. Of course I did. 10 years ago, he'd protested my domestic violence outreach bill. He called me a threat to the traditional family, but back then, he was just noise at a podium. Now he had my name written down on a death list. He'd already killed 2 people, Representative Hortman and her husband, shot them in their home. Another couple barely survived. The news said he wore a badge, a latex mask, drove a fake cop car, and inside it, a manifesto, a rifle, and 70 names. I was number 42. I stared at my hands. They were trembling. I wasn't trembling because of him. I was trembling because I remembered what I told myself back then. They'll never come for me. I'm too small, too irrelevant. But this man remembered, and now I had to remember too. By nightfall, I couldn't sleep. The safe house had no sound but the tick of a wall clock. Tick, tick, tick. As if time was counting down to something I didn't understand yet. The agent outside my door said, "Don't worry, he's probably long gone." Probably. That word did nothing for me. At 2:38 a.m., I sat on the carpet hugging my knees, replaying every decision I ever made that could have led to this. I thought I was helping women, giving them resources, a way out, a future. Turns out, I was also making enemies, and one of them was wearing a uniform and hunting people like me. I didn't want to die, but what I feared more was becoming silent. The next morning, the agent handed me a manila folder. Inside were surveillance photos. Vance Boelter in a latex mask, dressed as an officer, standing on suburban doorsteps like death in uniform. One photo showed him just 5 houses down from mine. The timestamp was from 2 days ago. My throat closed. "He was near my daughter's school," I whispered. The agent didn't flinch. "We believe he cased multiple targets. You were one." I asked how they found me in time. He said a traffic cam picked up the fake patrol car near my block. Just luck, maybe. Or something else watching over me. They moved me again, new safe house, different walls, colder air. I stared at the paint peeling from the window frame and thought, this is what it means to be hunted. Not just by a man with a gun, but by the past. Because part of me remembered him, not just the protests. He once requested a meeting with me, said he wanted to debate ideas. I declined. Something in his eyes back then felt off, like rage in a cage waiting for the lock to break. And now it had. I tried calling my daughter. The call didn't go through. Protocol, safety. They said it was for my protection. But silence isn't safety, it's isolation in disguise. I used to believe institutions would protect us, but here I was, guarded by strangers, fearing a man who wore authority like a weapon. They said he might have military training, that he rigged his car with audio loops and police chatter to seem real. He even studied my routines, knew where I shopped, where I jogged, where I vote. Every normal thing I did was a breadcrumb he followed. How do you live after learning your life was a map for someone else's violence? That night I asked for a pen and paper. I started to write, not to him, but to myself. A record, a reckoning. I wrote down every moment I stayed silent to stay safe, every time I swallowed fear instead of speaking out. And I asked myself, what will I do if I survive this? Because surviving isn't the end. It's the question. By the third night, something in me changed. The fear was still there, yes, but underneath it, a slow-burning anger. Not the kind that lashes out, the kind that builds, the kind that prepares. I began reading his manifesto, not out of curiosity but necessity. I wanted to know how he thought, how he saw me, how he saw all of us. He didn't see people, he saw symbols, enemies, threats to his fantasy of control. Women with voices were targets. Men who stood beside them, casualties. There was a paragraph in his writing that shook me more than anything. "You silence them once," he wrote, "and the rest will fall like dominoes." He didn't just want to kill. He wanted to ripple fear. And that's when I knew. If I stayed hidden, if I let him turn me into a footnote, I'd be letting him win. Not just over me, over every woman who ever thought of speaking out and didn't. Over every... The press conference was not my idea, it was the FBI's. "A public statement will show you're not afraid," they said. But I was terrified. Not just of Vance Boelter still being out there, but of my voice cracking on national television, of saying too much, or worse, saying nothing that mattered. They gave me a podium in a secured building, cameras, a statement drafted by lawyers. "Stick to the script," the agent told me. But when the red light blinked on, I set the paper aside. "My name is Elaine Monroe," I began, "and until 3 days ago I thought I was safe. Not because the world was kind, but because I had followed the rules. I worked within the system. I trusted the lines we drew would protect people like me. And I was wrong." I looked straight at the cameras. Somewhere behind one of those lenses, I imagined Boelter watching. Maybe from a hideout, maybe from hell. I didn't care. Let him hear me. "I was on your list," I said, "but I'm not yours to silence." I didn't remember what I said next exactly. Words flowed not from memory, but from the fire in my chest. I spoke about fear not as weakness, but as a signal, a message that something must be faced. I spoke of the women who'd called my office begging for help, the families torn apart, the ones who didn't survive. I told the world what it feels like to be a name on someone's hit list and to still show up. When I finished, no one clapped. It wasn't that kind of speech. It was the kind that leaves people holding their breath. Later that night, they moved me again, same ritual, black SUV, different city. I didn't ask where, I didn't care. I'd done what I came to do, not just survive, but speak. Loud enough that no latex mask, no stolen badge, no manifesto could unmake me. The next morning, the news said Boelter had been spotted near a rest stop in Iowa. They released new images. He looked tired, shaved head, backpack, civilian clothes, no badge, no costume, just a man now. A small, hunted man. And yet I couldn't shake the weight of him, the way he still lingered in my head like a shadow behind a curtain. Not because he was strong, but because he'd taught me how fragile peace really is. A week later, I opened my inbox. Hundreds of messages, from women, from survivors, from strangers who'd seen the broadcast and wrote, "I thought I was alone." They weren't. One message stood out. It said, "You turned fear into fuel. I think I can do that too." That's when I cried. Not out of fear, but because I realized something. I had lived. Not just survived. I had lived loudly, truthfully. And that was more than I ever thought I'd be allowed. Boelter didn't win. Not because they caught him, but because I spoke. And now others would too. In the months that followed,